Hello there and a very warm welcome to another exciting edition of the program. I am Victor Matthias and thank you to Ina Thompson for standing in while I was away. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, made moves to regulate fees being charged by banks in Nigeria. The regulatory body issued several circulars giving instructions on fees Nigerian banks can level on their customers. However, there have been pockets of complaints by bank customers on the implementation of these charges, and that is our focus on the program today. But before we begin, let's take a look at the social media trends in the past week. Social media enthusiasts gathered in Lagos for the 2016 edition of the Social Media Week, where 500 speakers were billed to deliver speeches on different areas of interest, especially with regards to those areas that have direct impacts on Nigeria. Former Super Eagles coach Sunday Olise followed the steps of former Nigerian internationals Emmanuel Emenike and Vincent Enyama to announce his resignation from the team via microblogging site Twitter, and that got Nigeria's social media circles buzzing. Samson Siasia has since taken over. Also trending is the pathetic story of a 14-year-old Ese Oruru who was allegedly abducted in August of 2015 in Bayelsa State and forcefully married to one Yunusa who hails from Kano. This has continued to elicit outrage on social media among Nigerians. Well, those were the trends in the past week. However, joining me to have a look at this topic is Tunde Leye, a financial services provider, Henry Nosegbe, an accountant, and Najib Bello, a digital media expert. All right, Tunde, let's just begin with you. What do you make of these charges that have been introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria?
The charges that I'm aware of was the ones around introducing a negotiable, what do you call it? Negotiable, they didn't call it COT again, they called it something else. Negotiable transaction charge. That was one. And there's also been the one that's a tax, which is the 50 naira stamp duty tax. I think those are the two recently introduced charges that I am aware of. Yeah, that's about it.
The stamp duty, 5 naira, is supposed to be 5 naira per transaction. But we've heard sometimes people get charged more. Some people have said they've been charged like 5 naira per meal or thereabout. And some have said they get charged on their savings account. That's one of the main complaints some of us have. People being charged 5 naira or more for transfers via their savings account, which the CBN has already stated is not included in the stamp duty charge. Then there are other transactions that are not supposed to even bring any charge at all. Last year, December, if Tunde can remember, some of us that use GT Bank, for instance, we received alerts telling us 100 naira has been deducted from our account. They called it, I think, the ATM maintenance charge, you know. And aside from that, maybe the SMS charges, when we get alerts monthly, the SMS charges have been ramped up maybe from like For some of us that don't do many transactions, we used to get maybe 100 naira max. And now, last month, I got 600 naira for my transaction charges notifications.
The CBN was trying to make the banks move away from depending on commission income to depending on fee income from, or like income from loans and advances. So the objective was to try to make banks move away from depending on income from COT and all to depending on loans. So they were trying to make them give out more loans and advances to the real sector and all of that. Now, in order to achieve that, they had a policy where they were going to phase out COT gradually, and so this year, 2016, was supposed to be the year. Now, if you look at this, if you look at the stamp duty, it, to all intents and purposes, it's almost like the COT. Really, you are trying to introduce the COT through the back door. And for those who have defended the policy, making use of the Stamp Duty Act, I'm not yet sure as to what specific provision of the Stamp Duty Act covers or makes specific provision for bank transactions being part of the transactions that are due for stamp duty. I'm not sure the Stamp Duty Act specifically provides for that. So I'm not yet convinced as to the legality of the
and it's restricted to current accounts, and there are some transactions that are exempt. For example, salary payments are exempt. Self-transfer, so you're transferring from your current to your savings account, even across banks, are exempt. And because of BVM, it's very easy to know if you are the owner of the account, your destination account. Now, having said that, banks have tried to implement, and there might be issues around implementing. And because I understand how complex the banking applications of these financial institutions are, sometimes when they try to implement these directives, and some of these directives come and they say it's with immediate effect, with a threat of fines hanging over the banks. And so they have to implement at least almost immediately. And because of the technology, implementation might not be as seamless as we would like it to be. And so what typically would happen is there's an implementation, and then there are these kind of complaints where, for example, they were supposed to exempt savings accounts, and those savings accounts were included, and people make complaints, and then they fine-tune and fine-tune. That's typically what happens.
All right, guys, just take a moment. Let's just hold it there and let Nigerians even understand what these charges that we've been talking about really are. First, we have the current account maintenance fee. We also have the 50 naira stamp duty per transaction fee. We have the 100 naira EDMMS application fee. We have the 65 naira ATM withdrawal charges, and we have the NSE CSCS trade alert. Well, those were the charges. Let me just come back to you to continue now that we have a broader picture of what these charges are.
The 65 naira one, I'd written about this before, and it's important for us to understand. There's infrastructure that has been put in place by different stakeholders to facilitate interoperability, or what we call switching, interbank transactions. So today, before all of this infrastructure was put in place, you could only use your cards on your own bank's ATMs, on your own bank's POSs, and things of that nature. However, people made investments to make this happen. All over the world, most of the time, those fees are not regulated by their central banks. Those fees are determined by market forces. However, in our case, the central bank chose to regulate those fees, and it's affected a lot of business cases. I can tell you that for free. So when they removed those charges, and they got feedback from the industry, you are essentially killing this industry. It was the reason why they reintroduced the charges. However, they also modified in such a way that it affects behavior. So if you don't want to be charged, go to your bank. However, if you're going to go to another bank, you have up to 3 transactions in a month to do for free. Beyond 3 transactions in a month, then you need to pay these people for the infrastructure and the service that they render. And that's essentially what some of those charges are.
All right, just hold it for a minute. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. Please join us again.